Okay, we need to learn how to properly use an Exacto knife. So the first thing that you'll notice is that you have a table number in the bottom left corner of your desk. So that table number is your number that you have been assigned to use for the Exacto knife. At your table, you're going to see that you have a Tupperware with 8 Exacto knives inside. You can see that on the top of the Tupperware there's a number for each knife. You'll also have a number on the handle of your knife that matches. So currently all these knives are placed inside of the Tupperware and they are pressed into a piece of styrofoam so that the knife doesn't cut through the Tupperware wall. So when you use an Exacto knife, you're going to pick up the Tupperware and hold that still, and then you're going to remove the number that you've been assigned. So this was number 27. Then you're going to put that Tupperware back at the middle of your table so another student can take the knife out. I prefer you pick up the Tupperware to remove them, because if you just try to pull that handle out, you're going to grab that whole Tupperware and move it, not realizing it. So hold it still with one hand, then pull that knife out. Okay, an Exacto knife is a cutting tool in the art class. This is a tool used to make art. The minute this knife leaves my classroom, it is now considered a weapon that can be used to harm others or to vandalize school property. So in my classroom, these are called cutting tools. And I'm going to teach you how to properly use an Exacto knife. If you notice, the knife is really sharp. It will cut through your skin immediately. So you need to be very careful when you handle these knives. If you look, the knife has a flat, straight edge that is in the exact same line with the end of the handle, and then there is a diagonal edge. The diagonal edge is the sharp side. That's the blade that you use to cut. Then you'll notice that the handle has this bumpy texture at the end and a bumpy texture here. That's a grip to help you hold on to the knife and not have your fingers slide. But I like to say that this is a warning for your finger to know that it's about to get too close to the blade. So when you hold your Exacto knife, your finger should be below the grip. Your finger should never be on the blade when you're cutting. So to hold an Exacto knife, you're going to grip it, and then you're going to turn your hand over. So I'm holding it between my thumb and my pointer finger, and the other fingers are wrapped underneath the blade, and I'm holding it with my entire fist. Then I'm making sure that the diagonal side is pointed down, because that's the side that I cut with. So when you use an Exacto knife, you always have to have a wooden board underneath you that's on top of the table, because I do not want you to cut directly into my tabletops. I don't mind if the board gets cut into, that's what the board is for. So before you cut, you should know what it is you're about to cut out, whether you are cutting a piece of cardboard or a piece of paper. You should have those lines already drawn to know where it is you're going to be cutting. So I'm going to demonstrate on this piece of cardboard. The proper position when you cut with an Exacto knife is the hand that is holding the blade can be right in front of you. The hand that's not holding the blade has to be up high, holding onto that piece of paper or that cardboard. The hand not holding the knife always has to be up high, away from where the knife blade is. When you cut, you're going to be cutting towards your body, because you will not slip and cut your body, because your hand will hit your stomach. This part of your hand will hit your stomach before the knife blade does. However, if I have my hands down low here and I'm holding onto my cardboard or my paper, if I slip, that blade is going to cut right across my finger tops. So you never ever have your hand down low when you cut, always up high. Okay, so when I start to cut, I kind of start with the top of the knife blade in that piece of paper or construction paper. Then I drop my wrist down at an angle, at a lower angle, so that I can pull that blade straight back, and you have to press hard when you do this. Sometimes when you cut cardboard, you're going to have to do more than one cut. So right now, that did not cut through my piece. So I'm going to line that up. Hand not holding the knife is up high out of the way. And I'm going to press harder this time. Now I've cut through and it's a nice even cut. If you notice, I pulled that blade in one smooth motion. I did not poke at the cardboard. This is not how you use an Exacto knife. You don't make tiny little chops. You don't dig at it. You push it down firm, slide the knife blade towards you to get a nice even cut. Okay, that's the first thing you need to remember. So if my fingers are down here and I'm trying to cut this line, that is a huge mistake because I will cut through my finger if my knife blade slips, and they slip often. So I always want to position the line so that I'm always cutting towards my body. So if I'm trying to cut this round shape, I'm going to hold my extra hand up high here, and I'm going to start cutting around the edge of the body. Now, when my line changes direction, so right now it's about to change direction, this is very awkward to turn my hand and try to cut sideways. So I'm not going to turn the knife to cut sideways. I'm going to turn the paper. So now that I've turned my paper, now I can put that blade where I ended last time. Now I can make this corner. Now I have to cut this way. That is very awkward to cut sideways with that knife blade. And now I'm going to be going towards my fingers. So I turn the paper, put my hand not holding the knife up top, and now I can continue to cut that line. It's up to you to try to cut around the whole entire outside edge and then check to see if it's cut all the way through. But I sometimes like to test it as I go. And if I see it didn't cut through in a particular area, then I'll line that knife blade up again and just try it one more time. Now I can see that that did in fact cut all the way through. You want to have a nice smooth even edge when you are cutting out your pieces of paper. Okay, if I was going to be cutting construction paper, same thing. Hold my hand up high, pull that knife blade through. You don't have to press as hard if you're cutting paper because it's thinner and it will slice right through easier. Okay, so now we need to know what happens if the knife blade starts to feel loose. These blades are designed to be replaced when they get dull. So sometimes when you cut, you'll notice the knife blade is wiggling back and forth. First of all, your fingers should never ever touch the blade. Do not touch the blade with your fingers. If you notice that as you're cutting, the blade is wiggling, sometimes when that happens, the blade will actually start to separate from the handle. Stop, put that down, raise your hand, and I will come to your desk and I will fix that for you. I do not want you touching the blades. Raise that hand. So I will come around and tighten that for you. It just got too loose. If the knife blade falls out completely, stop, raise your hand, tell me, and I will put that back in for you. Then, when you are finished cutting, as soon as you're finished cutting, you're going to take that Tupperware and you're going to stick that back in the assigned number that matches your desk. So this is number 27. When you do this, put the knife straight up and down until it goes into that cutout hole. Then you can tip it at an angle and push it into the styrofoam. But if you try and just put it in diagonally, it doesn't fit. So you have to stand it straight up, get it down into that hole, then poke it into the styrofoam. So you should never ever be walking around my classroom with an Exacto knife in your hand. The knife stays at your desk and it is laying on the surface. You never ever pretend to cut yourself or somebody else. That is not okay. The minute I see you messing around with an Exacto knife, not using it safely or correctly, I will remove that knife from you. You will not be allowed to use the knife ever again, and you will have consequences outside of school like detention. And if you intentionally cut yourself or somebody else, there will be severe consequences. So do not actually cut yourself or somebody else. Another thing, if I see you cutting surfaces that are not cardboard or paper, then you're using the knife inappropriately and you will also have consequences. So sometimes you can still follow the rules and end up cutting yourself. Accidents do happen. If you get cut, Immediately put down your knife, immediately go to the sink and start washing out your cut. Wash your hands. Also, if you cut yourself, grab that cut and squeeze it as hard as you can. The hand pressure is going to stop the flow of the blood. Then go to the sink as you're squeezing that hand tight. Run it under water for a bit. Get paper towel and squeeze it really, really hard to stop the bleeding. Then you need to tell me, or a friend needs to tell me, that you're bleeding. I have to know you're bleeding in my class. Then I'm going to look at your cut. If your cut just looks like a paper cut, I'm just going to give you a Band-Aid, dry your hand off, put the Band-Aid on, and you'll be fine. However, if I see that your cut is deeper than a paper cut, I will be sending you to the nurse, and the nurse can decide how to take care of your cut. It has happened in previous years where I did have a student that had to get 7 stitches in their finger because they cut their finger so deep and they were not following the directions, and that was a natural consequence of not following the directions. So you need to be very, very safe when using these Exacto knives. So you will be taking a safety quiz before I allow you to use the knife. You have to pass the safety quiz with 100% before I let you use the knife. So some other things you might experience when you cut yourself. Sometimes your body reacts in a funny way where your head might start spinning and you get dizzy. If that's the case, sit down immediately because you might pass out. Another thing that might happen is you might feel like you're going to throw up because you are in so much shock or so much pain. Go to a trash can immediately. Tell somebody you're cut. Tell somebody you don't feel good. We need to know that you're sick. Always tell the teacher when you hurt yourself, and then I will help get you taken care of as best as I can. So be safe and use these supplies appropriately.